So, good morning class. It's Philip, Ackerman-Leist here, and eager to dive into this morning's lecture. We've got another situation here where I'm going to have to teach on the beach. So, here we go. But to give you a little bit of perspective, we'll share some of the scenery here. Quite gorgeous. Tide seems to be coming in here this morning. And, you know, as one might expect, anytime you start a lecture, particularly an online lecture, you want to make sure you have a title page. So here's our title page, and that makes it a bit more formal. So we appreciate the fact that we're working with the resources we have here. So I'd like to talk a little bit this morning about certifications. We're about to dive into that. Those things come to me. So whoops. All right. Well, somebody already flying the bird at me here or in this morning. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive in to this morning's lecture. And, you know, they're always shifting sands under our feet, so need to be aware of that when we're talking about this. So, essentially, as we start out here this morning, I want to talk about the value-based value chains and how we actually get there. So, it's very clear that as we start out, we start dealing with terms. Those terms, as you know, and this is very applicable to this week as we work with the lexicon of sustainability, those terms suddenly that we're starting to use to describe what we're doing, what we're not doing, what we're aiming for, those terms quickly become fairly common in our lexicon, and so we start to establish those. And essentially, you know, we humans, we're always looking for buckets to put things in. So when we're thinking about terms, thinking about how we speak about what we're looking for in terms of food systems, we're looking for those buckets, and sometimes we actually find them. Dig it? Well, and then we start to move forward, and as we adopt those terms, then they become claims, very often claims in the marketplace, and sometimes those claims are more real than others. Sometimes they're just castles in the sky, or in the sand as it were, and they don't necessarily mean that much. So then the question becomes, what do we do in order to make those claims more substantial and substantiated? So, at that point, we move down a little bit, and we start to realize that the labels then start to become certifications. We're going to be talking quite a bit about certifications here over the next couple of weeks. And what I want you to think about is you can think of certifications, you can think of them as static, mechanistic. You can really start to think about those labels, you know, as being something that where they're just merely standards that are set in front of us. What I'd like to put forward here for you to chew on through the rest of the class here is that, you know, those certifications really are organismal in nature. It's not just the standards that you're seeing at the end of the day. So as you're thinking about them and taking pot shots at various certification standards, I want you to think about the fact that it's not just what's on the paper. It's the ideas, the discussions, the compromises that have gone on behind the scenes to try to create those certifications. And so they're still alive, and not only are they alive at that point, but as the certifiers are dealing with, you know, anyone from farmers to fisher folk, all the way down the food system chain as they're diving into working with processors, distributors, retailers, wholesalers, restaurants. You know, there's a lot of dialogue that's going on back and forth. So this is not something that's static in time. And those certifications tend to, you know, adapt in many cases. They tend to morph. Very few are actually static. And obviously, some are better than others. So as we move along, as suddenly those certifications become something a bit more, we've been talking about this, they become values-based value chains, VCs as we're talking about them in this class. And so those values-based value chains are very important in actually providing leverage within the marketplace, leverage and penetration. So we've been talking about those quite a bit, you've read about them a good bit, and they're going to show up in all kinds of ways as we go in the next couple of weeks of class. In some cases, maybe the value-based value chain is focused on local fish, for example. Maybe actually they will be focused on, you know, something that's eco-safe, as you've got bananas that are turtle-safe for organic banana farmers in various parts of the world. So, but then they also may look at the methods of production or harvesting. So you may have dolphin safe or something along those lines. And of course, then there are always people who are out there and they're quite ready to shoot at anything that comes along and start to take pot shots you've got those who are ready just to bulldoze the whole darn thing over and eliminate it. Good example, which doesn't necessarily have a certification behind it always, but you know, is the discussion of late as to whether Trump's organic, which we can talk about some as we move forward here. But then we'll also be talking about the tension between organic and also the animal welfare certifications. So anyway, there's always a bulldozer in the background. Good to remember. So let's wrap up. We're going to think about this just a little further. I'd like you to think a little bit more about whether, you know, these terms, whether the lexicon, whether they be the actual claims that we're making, whether they're the certifications, the value-based value chains. I'd like you to think a little bit more about whether all of this is simply a case of lines in the sand. So certainly none of these things are actually permanent. They tend to actually disappear over time, or at least morph. And that's part of what we're dealing with as we're thinking about values-based value chains, particularly with livestock and then also the fisheries. So hope you appreciate this opportunity for me to be able to teach on the beach. It's actually a joy to be able to do it. One of the beauties of online education is teach and learn from almost anywhere, I guess. So hope you have a great day. Remember, it's all about tidal shifts and our ability to actually influence those. So talk to you soon. See you in class. Bye-bye.